I married a man who hadn't spoken in 5 years. Everyone warned me he was cold, distant, impossible to reach. They were wrong. He wasn't cold. He was silent. And on our wedding night, he broke that silence for me. My name is Theo Bennett. I'm 26 years old, and I'm a low-rank Omega who learned very early that the world doesn't care about people like me. My parents died when I was 8, a car accident on a rainy Tuesday that left me with nothing but a box of their belongings and an aunt who resented every breath I took. Aunt Caroline raised me because she had to, not because she wanted to. She made that very clear. Every meal I ate was a favor. Every piece of clothing was charity. When I presented as a low-rank Omega at 15, her resentment turned to contempt. "Of course you're useless," she'd said, lighting another cigarette while I stood in the doorway with my test results. "Your mother was a disappointment too. At least she had the decency to marry an alpha before she died." I learned to make myself small, learned to skip meals so she wouldn't complain about the grocery bill, learned to work 3 part-time jobs through high school and college so I could pay my own way. I thought if I could just finish my degree, get a real job, I could finally leave. I was wrong. 2 months before graduation, Aunt Caroline sat me down at the kitchen table with a man I'd never met. His name was Richard Grant, and he smelled like expensive cologne and older alpha dominance that made my Omega instincts want to flee. "Theo," Aunt Caroline said, her smile too wide, too fake, "Mr. Grant has a proposal." Richard looked at me the way someone might look at a piece of furniture they were considering buying. "My son needs a spouse, an arranged marriage to settle some business matters. Your aunt has accumulated significant debt. I'm prepared to clear it entirely in exchange for this arrangement." I stared at her. "You gambled again?" "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. "This is an opportunity. The Grant family is one of the wealthiest in the city. You should be grateful." "And your son?" I asked Richard, my voice hollow. "Does he know about this arrangement?" "He's been informed," Richard said carefully. "He understands the necessity." That should have been my first clue that something was wrong. But I was 26, exhausted, and so tired of fighting. What did it matter who I married? At least this way, I'd be free of Aunt Caroline. "Fine," I said. "I'll do it." The wedding was scheduled for 2 weeks later. I didn't meet my future husband until the day of the ceremony. Aunt Caroline didn't even come. She'd gotten her payout, my bride price, essentially, and disappeared to whatever casino would take her money. The ceremony was at City Hall. No guests, no flowers, just a bored officiant and 2 witnesses I'd never met. That's where I first saw Elias Grant. He was beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair and gray eyes that looked like storm clouds. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than my entire year's tuition, and he stood perfectly still near the window, staring out at the city below. He didn't look at me when I entered, didn't acknowledge my presence at all. "Elias," Richard said sharply, "your spouse is here." Elias turned slowly. His eyes met mine for exactly 3 seconds before sliding away. His expression was completely blank. He pulled out his phone, typed something, and held it up. The screen read, "Let's get this over with." My stomach dropped. Right, this was business, nothing more. The ceremony took 7 minutes. The officiant read the standard lines. We signed the papers. When it came time to exchange rings, Elias slid a simple platinum band onto my finger without meeting my eyes. His hands were warm. Mine were shaking. "You may now kiss," the officiant said. Elias's jaw tightened. He leaned forward, pressed his lips to my forehead for exactly 1 second, then stepped back. That was it. I was married. Richard handed Elias a folder. "The penthouse is ready. Your assistant moved Theo's belongings this morning." "I have belongings?" I asked, surprised. "2 boxes," Richard said dismissively. "Not much." That was accurate. I didn't own much. Everything I had fit into 2 cardboard boxes. Elias typed on his phone again, showed it to his father. Richard frowned. "You're leaving now? We should at least have dinner." Elias was already walking toward the exit. He paused, looked back at me, and jerked his head toward the door. I followed. The car ride to the penthouse was silent. Not uncomfortable silence, just empty. Elias drove with perfect precision, his hands steady on the wheel, his expression giving away nothing. I tried once. "Thank you for this. I know it's not what you wanted." He didn't respond. didn't even glance at me. I turned to look out the window and didn't try again. The penthouse was on the top floor of a building in the financial district, all glass and steel and modern furniture that looked uncomfortable. The kind of place you saw in magazines, not the kind of place where people actually lived. Elias walked me through it quickly. Open plan living room and kitchen, his office down one hall, 2 bedrooms down another. He stopped at the second bedroom, pushed the door open, and stepped aside. My 2 boxes were sitting on the bed. He pulled out his phone, typed, showed me. Your room. Bathroom is attached. I won't bother you. We're not sharing a room? I asked. He looked at me like I'd said something absurd. Typed again. Why would we? This is a business arrangement. Separate lives. Right. Of course. Okay, I said quietly. Thank you. He nodded once and left. I heard his bedroom door close down the hall a moment later. I stood in my new room, our new apartment, and felt more alone than I had in years. The first week was strange. Elias left early every morning, before I woke up. He came home late, after I'd gone to bed. We existed in the same space, but never at the same time, like ghosts haunting different hours. He left notes, typed on his phone, and left the screenshots printed on the kitchen counter. Coffee is in the cabinet above the sink. Help yourself to anything in the fridge. Building gym is on the 4th floor if you want to use it. Practical, polite, distant. I tried to give him space, tried to be the perfect, convenient spouse who didn't make waves, but I was curious. Everyone kept saying Elias Grant was cold, impossible to reach. But when I looked at the carefully printed notes, at the way he'd stocked the fridge with foods I liked, even though I'd never told him my preferences, at the way he always left the hallway light on at night even though he didn't need it. He wasn't cold, he was careful. On the 8th day, I stayed up late. I wanted to see him, wanted to try to understand the man I'd married. He came home at 11. I was sitting on the couch with a book, and he froze when he saw me, his hand still on the doorknob. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. Then he carefully closed the door, set down his briefcase, and pulled out his phone. He typed, showed me. You should be asleep. I wanted to wait up, I said. We haven't really talked since the wedding. He stared at the phone screen for a long moment, then typed again. I don't talk. I know, but we could, I don't know, communicate somehow. I barely know you. His expression flickered. Something almost like pain crossed his face before it smoothed back to neutrality. He typed, what do you want to know? Anything. Everything. Why don't you speak? Your father said you were informed about the marriage. Did you agree? Are you? I stopped. Are you okay? With all this? Elias sat down on the opposite end of the couch. Not close, but not leaving either. He typed for a long time. I haven't spoken in 5 years. Trauma. Doctors say it's selective mutism. I agreed to the marriage because my father needed the business connection. I'm fine with it. You seem nice. You seem nice, I repeated. That's it? He almost smiled. Almost. He typed again. You smell good. Like rain and something sweet. It's distracting. My face heated. Is that bad? No, just distracting. We sat there for another hour. He typed. I talked. It wasn't normal conversation, but it was something. When I finally went to bed, I felt like maybe this marriage wouldn't be completely unbearable. That was before the wedding night changed everything. It happened on day 14, 2 weeks into our marriage, and we'd settled into a routine. Elias worked. I started a remote job I'd found online. We left each other notes. Sometimes we sat in the same room, existing parallel to each other. It was almost comfortable. That night, I'd gone to bed early. I'd been feeling off all day, restless, too warm, my skin hypersensitive. I assumed I was getting sick. I woke up at 2 a.m. burning. Not sick burning, heat burning. My suppressants should have prevented this. I'd been taking them religiously since I presented. But as I lay there, my skin on fire and my glands aching, I realized with growing horror what was happening. Pseudo-heat. Low-rank omegas like me were susceptible to them when exposed to strong alpha pheromones. And Elias's pheromones, even suppressed, were everywhere in this apartment. I'd been breathing them in for 2 weeks. I tried to ride it out, curled up in my nest of blankets and pillows, biting down on my hand to keep quiet, but it was getting worse. The burning was spreading, and my body was screaming for something I couldn't name. No, I knew what it was screaming for. I just couldn't ask for it. I needed alpha pheromones. Needed them like I needed air. After an hour of suffering, I gave up. I'd find my suppressants, take a double dose, deal with the side effects later. I stumbled out of my room, vision blurry with heat. The hallway was dark, except for the single light Elias always left on. I made it to the bathroom, pawing through the medicine cabinet with shaking hands. The suppressant bottle was empty. I'd forgotten to refill it. A sound escaped me, something between a sob and a whimper. I was in full pseudo-heat in my husband's apartment, and I had no way to stop it. Theo? I spun around. Elias was standing in the hallway, wearing only sleep pants, his hair messed from bed. His eyes were wide, nostrils flaring. He could smell it. Of course he could. My heat pheromones were probably flooding the entire apartment. I'm sorry, I managed. I'll lock myself in my room. I just need to... I didn't get to finish. Elias moved faster than I'd ever seen him move, crossing the space between us in 3 strides. He grabbed my wrist gently, so gently, and pulled me against his chest. His scent hit me like a wave, cool mint and something darker, something that made my omega instincts purr with satisfaction. I heard myself make a sound I had never made before, desperate, needy. Elias's whole body went rigid. His grip on my wrist tightened slightly, and when I looked up at him, his eyes were blown wide, pupils dilated until only a ring of gray remained. I'm sorry, I whispered again. I don't have suppressants. He wasn't listening. His head was tilted, nose pressed against my hair, breathing in deep. His chest was rumbling, a sound I'd never heard from him before. Almost like a growl, but lower, more primal. Elias? My voice came out small, scared. Not of him, of what I wanted him to do. His hand came up, cupped the back of my neck. His thumb pressed against my gland, and I nearly collapsed from the sensation. Then he spoke. His voice was rough, unused, cracking on the edges like he'd forgotten how to shape words. But it was there. Real, unmistakable. Mine. That single word hung in the air between us. I stared up at him, shocked beyond speech. 5 years of silence, and he'd broken it for... Mine, he said again, more firmly this time. His hand tightened on my neck, possessive. You're mine. Elias, I breathed. You're speaking. Don't care. His voice was getting steadier, but still rough, like machinery that hadn't been used in years suddenly grinding back to life. Can't stay silent. Not with you like this. Not when you smell like... He buried his face in my neck. Mine. Say it. I'm yours, I whispered, because what else could I say? My body was already responding to him, to his voice, to his touch, to everything. Good. He pulled back just enough to look at me, and his expression was fierce, possessive. Nothing like the blank mask he'd worn for 2 weeks. Going to mark you. Temporary. Need to. Can't stop it. Okay, I said, even though I didn't fully understand what was happening. Okay. His eyes flashed. Will hurt. I'm sorry. I didn't get to finish. His teeth sank into my neck, right over my gland, and the world went white. Pain and pleasure exploded through me in equal measure. I heard myself cry out, felt my knees give way, but Elias caught me, held me steady while he marked me, while his alpha pheromones flooded into my system, while my body accepted the bite and the claim. When he pulled back, his lips were stained with my blood. His eyes were wild. Bedroom, he said. Just that one word, but the command in it made my omega instincts snap to attention. Now. He carried me. I didn't remember much after that, just heat and hands and the overwhelming scent of mint, just Elias's voice breaking through over and over, rough and desperate, saying things I'd remember later when I could think again. So good, so perfect. My omega, finally, mine, all mine. When I woke up, it was late afternoon. The heat had broken. My body was sore. My neck was throbbing from the mark, and I was alone. Elias was gone. There was a note on the pillow, printed from his phone, like always. I'm sorry. That shouldn't have happened. I lost control. I'm staying at a hotel for a few days. Give you space. Temporary mark will fade. We can pretend it didn't happen. E. I sat up slowly, touching the bite on my neck. It was real. The mark was real. His voice was real. Elias had spoken, had claimed me, had spent hours with me, taking care of me through the worst of the heat. And then he'd run. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Elias didn't come home. He texted twice short, typed messages like always. Are you okay? Let me know if you need anything. I wanted to text back, I need you, but I didn't. The mark faded slowly. Each day, the scent of mint on my skin grew fainter. Each day, I felt a little more empty. On day 15, he finally came home. I was in the kitchen when I heard the door open, heard him set down his briefcase, heard him pause in the hallway. I didn't turn around, didn't know what to say. He appeared in the doorway. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, his clothes rumpled, his hair a mess. He pulled out his phone, typed, showed me. We need to talk. You're not speaking anymore, I said quietly. He flinched, typed again. Shouldn't have. Was a mistake. Lost control. Sorry. Which part was a mistake? I asked. Speaking or marking me? He stared at the phone for a long moment, finally typed. Both. Neither. I don't know. I set down the dish I'd been washing, turned to face him fully. I need you to explain something to me. Everyone said you hadn't spoken in 5 years, that you couldn't, that it was trauma. He nodded. So you spent 5 years silent, and you broke that silence for me during my heat. Why? He typed for a long time, deleted it, typed again, showed me. Couldn't stop myself. You were mine. My omega. My wolf knew. I had to claim you. Had to tell you. And now? Now I'm terrified. The honesty of it hit me in the chest. Of what? He typed again, and this time his hands were shaking. Of wanting you, of needing you, of losing control again. I haven't spoken in 5 years because speaking means feeling, means being vulnerable. I can't go back to that. I can't. I walked over to him. He went very still. What if I don't want you to go back? I asked quietly. What if I want you to speak? What if I want you to claim me? What if... I took a breath. What if I want to be yours? He stared at me, then typed. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me, speak to me, explain it, or type it. I don't care how you communicate, just communicate, please. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he typed. Can we try? Slowly? Yes, I said. We can try. That's how we started. Slowly, carefully. Elias moved back into the penthouse. We still had separate rooms, but now we existed in the same space at the same time. We ate breakfast together. Dinner, too, when he wasn't working late. He communicated mostly through his phone still, but sometimes he'd speak, just a word or two. Usually when we were alone, when he felt safe. Coffee? Thank you. Good night. Each word felt like a gift. I learned more about him in those weeks than I'd learned in the first month. His assistant Marcus told me about the trauma, about Elias's parents being murdered when he was 26, about him being the only witness, about the trial where he testified for days, about the killers being acquitted on a technicality, about Elias stopping speaking the day the verdict was read. He just shut down, Marcus said over coffee one afternoon. Stopped talking, stopped engaging. His therapist said it was his brain's way of protecting him. If he didn't speak, he couldn't be hurt by words again. But he spoke to me, I said quietly. Marcus smiled. He did. Do you know what that means? That he lost control? That he trusted you enough to be vulnerable, even if he didn't realize it. I thought about that a lot. About trust, about vulnerability, about the fact that Elias had spent 5 years building walls, and I'd somehow made them crack. 3 months into our marriage, we'd settled into something that almost felt like a relationship, but let me tell you about those 3 months. About what it was really like to fall in love with someone who barely spoke. The first breakthrough came on week 5. I was cooking dinner, pasta, nothing fancy, and Elias came home early from work. He set his briefcase down, walked into the kitchen, and just stayed, leaned against the counter, watching me. I tried to ignore the way my hands shook under his attention. Hungry? I asked. He pulled out his phone, typed, "What are you making?" Carbonara. My grandmother taught me. It's the only thing I'm actually good at making. He watched me crack eggs, grate cheese, cook pasta. When I served it, he took one bite and closed his eyes. The expression on his face, pure satisfaction, made my chest warm. He typed, "This is incredible." Really? He nodded emphatically, then typed again. "Will you teach me?" That's how it started. Cooking lessons that turned into standing close in the kitchen, his hand steadying mine as I showed him how to separate eggs, my back pressing against his chest as he reached past me for ingredients. The mint scent of him was everywhere, intoxicating, making my omega instincts purr. Week 7, I caught him reading one of my books, a trashy romance novel I'd left on the coffee table. His ears were red. "That's embarrassing," I said, trying to grab it. He held it out of reach, typed one-handed. "It's good. The love interest reminds me of someone." "Who?" He looked at me pointedly, typed, "Emotionally unavailable alpha who doesn't know how to show affection." I laughed so hard I snorted, "That's you. You're calling yourself emotionally unavailable." He almost smiled, typed, "Self-aware." After that, I started leaving books out deliberately, romance novels mostly, and I'd catch him reading them, his expression intense, like he was studying, like he was trying to learn how to be the kind of alpha these books described. Week 9, I got sick, just a cold, but I was miserable. Woke up with a fever and a throat that felt like glass. Elias found me curled up in bed at noon, having skipped breakfast and lunch. His expression immediately shifted from neutral to worried. He disappeared, came back 20 minutes later with medicine, soup from my favorite restaurant, tissues, and a humidifier I was pretty sure he'd just bought. He set it all up methodically, propped pillows behind my back, handed me medicine and water, opened the soup container. "You don't have to do this," I said, my voice raspy. "I'm fine." He gave me a look that clearly said I was an idiot. Typed, "You're sick. I'm your alpha. This is literally my job. We're just, eat the soup," he typed, cutting me off. I ate the soup. He sat on the edge of the bed the entire time, watching like I might collapse at any moment. When I finished, he took the empty container, pulled the blankets up to my chin, and dimmed the lights. Before he left, he did something that made my heart stop. He leaned down, very carefully, and pressed his lips to my forehead. Not quite a kiss. Just contact. Checking my temperature, maybe. Or maybe something else. "Sleep," he said. Just that one word, rough and quiet. Then, he was gone. I fell asleep breathing in mint and feeling less alone than I had in months. Week 10, Elias started working from home more. His office was down the hall from my room, and I'd hear him on video calls typing his responses, using text-to-speech software for longer answers. It was efficient, professional. No one seemed to mind. But during breaks, he'd come find me, sit on the couch while I read or worked on my laptop. We existed in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't feel empty. Sometimes his hand would rest near mine on the couch cushion. Not touching, but close, available. Week 11, I asked him why he never smiled. He typed, "I do smile." "No, you almost smile. Your mouth does this tiny twitch thing, but I've never seen you actually smile." He stared at his phone for a long time, then typed, "Haven't had a reason to in 5 years." That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. He looked at me, really looked at me, his gray eyes intense, typed, "You make me want to. That's new. What stops you?" "Habit, fear, forgetting how." I set down my book. "Can I try something?" He nodded warily. I shifted closer on the couch, not touching him, but close enough to feel his warmth. "Tell me something good, something from before, a happy memory." He typed, "Why?" "Because I want to know you, the real you, not just the silent version, the person you were before the trauma." His hands hovered over the phone, then he typed, slowly, "My mother used to make hot chocolate every Sunday morning. Real chocolate, not powder. She'd let me help stir. The kitchen would smell like vanilla and chocolate and home. She'd tell me stories about my grandparents, about when she and my father were young, about how they knew they were fated mates the moment they met. I watched his expression soften as he typed, the harsh lines around his mouth easing. "She sounds wonderful," I said quietly. He nodded, typed, "She was. She'd have liked you." "Really?" "She always said I'd know my fated mate because they'd make me feel safe enough to be vulnerable." That vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was trust. My throat felt tight. "Do you feel safe with me?" He looked at me for a long moment. Then, instead of typing, he spoke. Just 2 words, but they were enough. "I do." Week 12, everything changed. We were watching a movie, some action film Elias had picked, and I was tired. Without thinking, I leaned my head on his shoulder. He went completely rigid. I started to pull away, apologizing, but his arm came around my shoulders, pulled me back, held me there. We stayed like that for the entire movie. His scent wrapping around me, his warmth seeping into my side, his thumb absently rubbing circles on my shoulder. When the credits rolled, neither of us moved. "Elias?" I said quietly. "Mm-hmm. Thank you for being patient with me, for trying." His arm tightened. "Thank you for staying, for not giving up on this, on me." "I won't," I promised, "give up on you." "Good," he said, still speaking, his voice quiet but steady. "Because I'm falling in love with you, and I don't know how to stop." I lifted my head to look at him. His expression was raw, vulnerable, terrified. "Don't stop," I whispered. "Please don't stop." He cupped my face with one hand. Okay, that was week 12. That was when I knew this marriage had become something real. When I knew that Elias Grant, the alpha who hadn't spoken in 5 years, was learning to speak again for me. Week 13 brought rain. I loved rain, always had. Loved the smell of it, the sound against windows, the way it made everything feel quiet and soft. I was standing at the living room window watching the storm when Elias came up behind me. He didn't say anything, just stood there, close enough that I could feel his warmth but not quite touching. After a moment, he held out his phone. "You like rain." "I do," I said. "Always have. My grandfather used to take me outside during storms when I was little. Said rain washed away bad things, made room for good things to grow." He typed, "Smart man." He was. He died when I was 23, heart attack. One day he was there, the next he was gone. I pressed my hand against the glass. Sometimes I miss him so much. It hurts. Elias's hand covered mine on the glass. His palm was warm against my knuckles. "He'd be proud of you," Elias said, his voice quiet. Speaking instead of typing. For surviving. For being kind when the world wasn't kind to you. He paused. For saving me. I turned to look at him. "I didn't save you." "You did." His gray eyes were intense. "Just by existing. Just by being here. By making this place feel like..." He stopped, struggled for the word. "Home." My breath caught. "Elias." He pulled his hand back like he'd been burned, immediately pulled out his phone, typed, "Sorry, too much." "No," I said quickly. "Not too much, never too much. I took a breath. I feel the same way. This place feels like home because you're here." He stared at me. Then very slowly, very carefully, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my cheek. We stood there in the rainlight, not quite brave enough to close the distance, but not wanting to move away either. Week 14, I learned that Elias had nightmares. I woke up at 3 a.m. to sounds from his room, went to check on him, and found him sitting on the edge of his bed, head in his hands, breathing hard. I knocked softly. "Elias?" He looked up, and even in the dark I could see the distress on his face. His scent was all wrong, sharp, acidic, nothing like the cool mint I was used to. I should have left, should have given him privacy. Instead, I walked in and sat beside him. "Bad dream?" I asked. He nodded, reached for his phone, but his hands were shaking too badly to type. "You don't have to explain," I said. "Just, do you want me to stay?" Another nod. So I stayed. Sat beside him in the dark while his breathing slowly evened out, while his scent gradually softened back to mint. After a while, he leaned slightly against me, just his shoulder touching mine, but it was enough. They were murdered, he said suddenly. His voice was rough with sleep and emotion. My parents. I was there. I saw. He stopped, took a breath. I testified, stood in that courtroom and told everything, and they walked free. Some technicality, his voice broke. They killed my parents, and they walked free, and I couldn't say anything anymore. Couldn't speak, I know, I said softly. Marcus told me. I'm so sorry. I dream about it sometimes. About that day, about the trial, he stopped again. But tonight was different. Tonight, I dreamed about losing you. About you leaving and taking your scent with you, and this place being empty again. That was worse. Somehow that was worse than all of it. My throat felt tight. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. He took my hand, held it tight. We sat there until dawn started breaking through the windows, and he never let go. Week 15, Elias had a work dinner. Important clients. He asked if I'd come with him. Typed, you don't have to, but I'd feel better if you were there. Why? Because you make everything easier, less overwhelming. He typed slowly, like having an anchor, something to hold on to. So I went. Wore the one nice outfit I owned, black slacks and a button-down that was a little too big. Elias looked at me when I emerged from my room, and something flickered in his expression. He typed, you look good, really good. The dinner was at some expensive restaurant where the menu didn't have prices. Elias introduced me to the clients, an older alpha couple who owned a chain of hotels. His hand stayed on the small of my back the entire time. The wife smiled at us. How long have you two been married? 3 months, I said. Oh, newlyweds. How sweet. You can tell you're fated mates. The way you move together, the scent compatibility, it's beautiful. Elias's hand tightened slightly on my back. Possessive. The husband laughed. I remember being newly mated. Couldn't stand to be apart for more than an hour. Still can't, really. 30 years later. 30 years? I repeated. That's incredible. The secret, the wife said, leaning in conspiratorially, is communication. Talk about everything, even the hard things, especially the hard things. Don't let silences become walls. I felt Elias go very still beside me. After dinner, in the car, he was quiet for a long time. Finally typed, she's right, about communication. I've been hiding, using silence as a shield. That's not fair to you. You're trying, I said. That's what matters. Is it enough? I looked at him, at his profile in the streetlight, the worry in the set of his shoulders. Yes, it's enough. Week 16, I caught Elias smiling, actually smiling. Not the almost smile, not the tiny mouth twitch, a real, genuine smile. I'd made a joke, something stupid about the TV show we were watching, and he just smiled, his whole face transformed. He looked younger, lighter, like the weight he carried had lifted for just a moment. You smiled, I said, shocked. He touched his mouth like he hadn't realized. Typed, did I? You did. A real smile. Elias, you smiled. He looked almost embarrassed. Typed, you're funny. I forget sometimes. You make me laugh. I make you laugh? In my head, my inner monologue is always laughing at your jokes. I forget to show it. Show it more, I said. Please, I love seeing you smile. He looked at me for a long moment. Then very deliberately, he smiled again. Smaller this time, but there. Real. I fell a little more in love with him right then. Week 17, we had our first real fight. Over something stupid, I'd reorganized the kitchen without asking, and Elias couldn't find anything. He got frustrated, I got defensive, and suddenly we were both upset. He typed, you changed everything. I can't find anything. Why didn't you ask? I was trying to help. The old system didn't make sense. It made sense to me. Well, maybe your system was bad. We glared at each other. Then Elias let out a sound, something between a laugh and a groan, typed, "We're fighting about cabinet organization." "Yes," I said, still annoyed. "We are." He typed slowly, "That's kinda domestic. Kinda like a real married couple." Some of my anger deflated. "I guess it is." "I'm sorry," he typed. "You were trying to help. I should have said thank you instead of getting upset." "I'm sorry too. I should have asked first." We made up that night. Elias gave me a tour of his organizational system, which was actually pretty logical once he explained it. I helped him reorganize to combine his system with my changes. We worked side by side, occasionally bumping shoulders, and it felt right. Married, domestic, real. Week 18, Elias started leaving me voice messages. Not calls, he still couldn't handle phone conversations, but recordings. Short ones, just a sentence or two. "Running late, save me some dinner. Saw this and thought of you." Attached, a photo of a bookstore display with my favorite author. "Thank you for breakfast." It was perfect. His voice in my ear, rough and careful and trying, it became my favorite sound. I was falling in love with him, with his quiet presence, his careful attention, the way he left little notes around the apartment just to make me smile. I was falling in love with a man who barely spoke, who communicated in gestures and scents and typed words. And I was terrified he'd never love me back. That fear crystallized on day 93, when everything fell apart. I'd gone to bring Elias lunch at his office. He'd been working late all week on some big deal, and I thought surprising him might be nice. I should have called first. His office building was massive, all glass and steel, with Grant Industries emblazoned on the front. The receptionist recognized me, smiled, and sent me up to the executive floor without question. I found Elias's office easily. The door was slightly ajar. I was about to knock when I heard voices. "Ridiculous that you went through with it." That was a man's voice. Sharp, irritated. "Marrying some random Omega because your father demanded it. You should have refused." I froze. It was necessary. That was Elias's voice. Speaking, clear and steady, and nothing like the rough, hesitant words he gave me at home. My heart stopped. "Necessary?" The other man scoffed. "You married him for a business deal. The Omega means nothing to you. You haven't even properly claimed him. It's all for show." Silence. Then Elias's voice again, quieter. "It's complicated. It's simple. You're lying to him, pretending this is something it's not. How long are you going to keep up this act?" "Nathan, don't. I know you, Elias. You're not capable of caring about someone like that. You've been numb for 5 years. One Omega isn't going to fix you." I didn't wait to hear more. I turned and walked, then ran to the elevator. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely press the button. He'd been speaking. The whole time he could speak normally, and he just didn't. With me. Because I meant nothing. I made it home before I started crying, collapsed on my bed and let it all out, the humiliation, the heartbreak, the stupid, naive hope that this marriage might become something real. I'd been falling in love with a man who was just going through the motions, playing a part. The wedding night, the mark, the careful attention, it was all just part of the arrangement. I cried until I had nothing left. Then I got up, washed my face, and made a decision. I couldn't do this anymore. Couldn't pretend that Elias would ever see me as more than a business obligation. I went to the office down the hall, Elias's home office, the one I rarely entered. I found what I was looking for in the filing cabinet. Our marriage contract, the prenup, the divorce clause. I took it to my room and read it carefully. The terms were simple. After 6 months, either party could file for divorce with no penalties. We were 3 months in. I could wait 3 more months, file the papers, and walk away. 3 months. I could survive 3 more months. I just had to stop hoping for more. That night, Elias came home at 7, earlier than usual. He found me in the kitchen, preparing dinner like normal. He pulled out his phone, typed, showed me. "Marcus said you came by the office earlier. Did you need something?" I didn't look up from the vegetables I was chopping. "No. Changed my mind. It's fine." He typed again. "Are you okay?" "Fine." I could feel him staring at me, could sense his confusion, but he didn't push, just set his briefcase down and went to his room. We ate dinner in silence. Real silence, not comfortable silence, the kind that pressed down like a weight. When I went to bed, I locked my door for the first time since moving in. I heard Elias try the handle once, heard him pause outside the door, then heard him walk away. The next 2 weeks were torture. I pulled back, stopped leaving notes, stopped trying to engage, treated Elias exactly like what he was, a roommate, a business arrangement. He noticed. Of course he noticed. The notes multiplied. Did I do something wrong? Please talk to me. What changed? I ignored them all. Until the morning I woke up sick. At first, I thought it was stress, but when it happened 3 days in a row, nausea so bad I could barely stand, I started to worry. On day 4, I went to the doctor, told them I'd been feeling off. They ran standard tests. The nurse came back with a strange expression. Mr. Grant, when was your last heat? 2 months ago. Why? And you were intimate with your alpha during that heat? My face burned. Yes, but we used protection. Protection isn't always effective with fated mates, she said gently. Congratulations, you're pregnant. The world tilted sideways. That's impossible. I'm on suppressants. We were careful. Fated mate bonds can override both. Your body recognized your alpha's claim and overrode your suppressants to conceive. She smiled. This is actually quite rare. You should feel honored. Honored. Right. I was pregnant. With Elias's child. The child of a man who'd married me for business, who spoke to everyone but me, who was counting down the days until our arrangement could end. I made it home on autopilot, sat on my bed with the test results in my hands. A baby. I was going to have a baby with a man who didn't love me. I needed to tell him. Needed to what? Ask him to stay? To pretend to be a family? To extend our arrangement another 18 years? No. I'd figure this out on my own. I always had. That night, I made a plan. I'd wait until the 6-month mark, file for divorce, tell Elias about the baby after the papers were signed. He'd have rights. I wouldn't keep his child from him, but we wouldn't have to keep up this charade. I could do this alone. I'd been doing everything alone my whole life, but I couldn't hide it forever. A week after the doctor's visit, Elias noticed. We were having breakfast, one of the few times we were still sharing space, and I got hit with a wave of nausea so strong I had to run to the bathroom. When I came back, pale and shaking, Elias was standing in the kitchen doorway. His expression was worried. He typed, "You've been sick a lot lately. Have you seen a doctor?" "I'm fine," I said. "Just a bug." He didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. He typed again, "Please see a doctor. I'm worried." Why? The word came out sharper than I intended. Why do you care? He flinched, typed, "Because you're my omega." No, I'm not. I snapped. I'm your business arrangement, your obligation. Don't pretend you care. I heard you, at your office, talking to Nathan. I know this is all just an act. His face went white, then red. His hands shook as he typed. What exactly did you hear? Enough. That I mean nothing. That this marriage is just for show. That you're not capable of caring about someone like me. My voice cracked. That you're pretending. He stared at his phone, at his hands. Then, very deliberately, he set the phone down. When he looked at me again, his eyes were fierce. You heard wrong. His voice was rough, unused to so many words. Or, you didn't hear everything. Because you're wrong. I stepped back. He was speaking. Really speaking. Not typing, not hiding. He followed, each word seeming to cost him effort but coming anyway. Nathan is angry because I refused his business proposal. Because I chose you over his deal. Because I told him this marriage was real to me. That you were real to me. You were speaking so easily, I said, my voice small. To him, to everyone there. But with me? With you it's harder, he interrupted. With you it means something. Every word, every sound. Because you matter. Because if I speak to you, I'm vulnerable. I'm exposed, and that terrifies me. Why? He took a shaky breath. Because I love you. And loving someone means they can hurt you. And I spent 5 years making sure no one could hurt me again. The words hung in the air between us. You don't mean that, I whispered. I do. He stepped closer. I loved you the night we married, when you trusted me enough to sign the papers without reading them. I loved you during your heat, when you said you were mine. I love you now, even when you're shutting me out, even when you're sick and won't tell me why, even when I'm pregnant. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Elias stopped mid-sentence, stared at me. What? I'm pregnant, I said again, quieter this time. From the heat, from the wedding night. The bond overrode my suppressants. I found out a week ago. I was going to wait to tell you until after I stopped. Until after what? Until after the divorce. His expression crumbled. You want a divorce? I thought you did. I thought this was all just... No. He closed the distance between us. No divorce. No pretending. No more hiding. Theo, His voice cracked. He tried again. I'm not good at this. Speaking, feeling, being open, but I'll try. For you, for our child, I'll try. You're really speaking, I said, tears starting to fall. This whole time, you could speak, you just didn't want to. I did want to, he said quietly. With you, only with you. But every time I tried, I was so scared. Scared you'd leave. Scared I'd say the wrong thing. Scared I'd drive you away. So I stayed silent and drove you away anyway. I was crying in earnest now. You said I meant nothing, that the marriage was for show. I never said that. Nathan said that. I was about to correct him when you left. He cupped my face. You mean everything. You're my fated mate, my omega, the person who made me want to speak again after 5 years. How could you mean nothing? I didn't know, I sobbed. I thought. I know. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. Should have tried harder. Should have... He rested his forehead against mine. I'm a disaster at this. But I'm your disaster, if you'll still have me. I kissed him, couldn't help it, pressed my lips to his, and poured every confused, hurt, hopeful feeling into it. When we broke apart, he was smiling, really smiling. The first time I'd seen him look genuinely happy. Is that a yes? He asked, his voice rough but steady. Yes, I said, but you have to promise me something. Anything. Keep talking to me, even when it's hard, even when you want to hide. Promise. I promise. We stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, while the morning light streamed through the windows. Everything felt fragile and new, like glass that might shatter if we moved wrong. But it was real. The next few months were hard. Elias kept his promise. He spoke more, even though I could see how much effort it cost him. Some days he could barely manage more than a few sentences. Other days he'd talk for an hour, telling me about work, or his childhood, or his fears about being a father. He started therapy again, real therapy, working on the trauma that had stolen his voice, working on being vulnerable without breaking. His first session, he came home exhausted. Sat on the couch with his head in his hands. I sat beside him, waiting. I talked, he said, finally, his voice hoarse. For a full hour. About my parents, about that day, about the trial, about everything. He looked at me. I haven't done that in 5 years. It was, he struggled for the word, excruciating. I'm proud of you, I said, taking his hand. I almost left 3 times, almost walked out, but I thought about you, about the baby, about how I promised I'd try. His grip tightened, so I stayed, and I talked. And it hurt so much, I thought I might break. But you didn't break. No, he said quietly. I didn't break. The second session was worse. He came home and went straight to his room. Didn't come out for dinner. I knocked around 8, worried. Elias, can I come in? Silence. Then, please. He was sitting on the floor by his bed, knees drawn up, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. His eyes were red. Bad session? I asked, sitting beside him. He nodded. She made me. His voice cracked. She made me say it, out loud. My parents were murdered. The killers went free. I couldn't save them. Just like that, over and over, until the words stopped hurting quite so much. Did they? Stop hurting? No, but they hurt less. A little less. He looked at me. Is that progress? Yes, I said firmly. That's definitely progress. He leaned his head on my shoulder. Will you stay with me tonight? Just be here? Of course. We fell asleep on his floor, backs against the bed, my head on his shoulder and his hand on my stomach where our baby was growing. The third session, he came home and actually smiled. I talked about you, he said, about how you make me want to speak, about how, for the first time in 5 years, I actually want to communicate, want to share myself with someone. That's huge, apparently. It is huge, I agreed. She wants to meet you, says having you in a session might help. Would you be willing? To come to therapy with you? You don't have to. It's asking a lot, but she thinks, he paused. She thinks understanding how we communicate might help me speak more, to everyone, not just you. I'll come, I said without hesitation. Of course I'll come. The joint session was intense. Dr. Sarah Chen was a small, alpha woman with kind eyes who immediately put me at ease. She asked us questions how we met, how we communicated, what made our relationship work. Elias typed most of his answers, but occasionally spoke. Short phrases, carefully chosen. He makes me feel safe. When I'm with him, the silence doesn't feel heavy. He's patient, doesn't push. Dr. Chen watched us carefully. Theo, you've essentially learned a new language. You read his scent changes, his body language, his silences. That's remarkable. It's not that hard, I said. He's very expressive once you know how to look. Elias's scent shifted warm, pleased, a little embarrassed. And Elias, Dr. Chen said, you speak more with Theo than with anyone else. Why do you think that is? He was quiet for a long time. Finally, because he doesn't expect anything, he's happy with whatever I can give. Typed words, spoken words, silence. He just accepts all of it, all of me. And that safety allows you to be vulnerable. Yes. Dr. Chen smiled. That's a gift. What you two have built, that's a partnership built on genuine acceptance. Hold on to that. We went to 3 joint sessions. Each one helped. Elias started speaking more at home, started making phone calls, occasionally short ones, but still, progress. I watched him try, watched him fail sometimes and try again anyway, and I fell more in love with him every day. The pregnancy progressed normally. Morning sickness gave way to cravings and then to exhaustion. My omega body, finally having what it needed, a bonded alpha present, thrived. Elias was obsessed. Read every book about omega pregnancy he could find, attended every doctor's appointment, made sure I had everything I needed before I even knew I needed it. At 12 weeks, we heard the heartbeat for the first time, fast and strong, filling the doctor's office. Elias's hand crushed mine, his eyes wet. That's our baby, he said, voice cracking. That's our child. The doctor smiled. Perfectly healthy, right on track. On the way home, Elias was quiet. Not upset quiet, thoughtful quiet. Finally, he spoke. I was terrified I'd be a bad father, that I wouldn't be able to talk to our child, to tell them I love them, he paused. But hearing that heartbeat, I realized something. I'll find a way. If I can speak for you, I can speak for them. I have to. You'll be an amazing father, I said. How do you know? Because you try, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's what good parents do. At 16 weeks, I started showing a small curve to my stomach that Elias couldn't stop touching. He'd rest his hand there while we watched TV, while we cooked, while we slept, like he needed constant confirmation that the baby was real. Does it hurt? He asked one night, his hand warm on my skin. Not hurt, just feels full, like there's not enough room inside me. There will be soon, he said, smiling. When they're born and taking up all our space in the house instead. Are you ready for that? For no more quiet? He looked at me seriously. I spent 5 years in silence. I'm ready for noise, for chaos, for a house full of crying and laughter and everything in between. As long as you're here too. I'm not going anywhere, I promised. At 20 weeks, we found out we were having a boy. Elias cried in the doctor's office. Actually cried, tears streaming down his face while he stared at the ultrasound screen. A son, he kept saying. We're having a son. That night, he held me close and spoke directly to my stomach. Hey, little one, I'm your alpha father. I'm going to do everything I can to be good enough for you. To give you the childhood he stopped. Started again. To give you everything. Love and safety, and a home where you never doubt you're wanted, where you never have to be quiet if you don't want to be, where your voice matters. I ran my fingers through his hair. He's lucky to have you. We haven't picked a name yet, Elias said. Any ideas? I always liked classic names. James, Benjamin, Alexander. Atlas, Elias said quietly. What about Atlas? The titan who held up the sky? The one who carried weight, who was strong enough to bear impossible things. He looked up at me. You carried so much alone for so long. Our child, he's proof you don't have to anymore. That I'm here to help you carry everything. So, Atlas, the weight we'll carry together. My throat felt tight. Atlas. I love it. At 24 weeks, we moved to the house. It took 3 days to pack everything from the penthouse, to sort through what we wanted to keep and what we needed for a baby. Elias hired movers for the heavy stuff, but we did most of it ourselves. The house was in a quiet neighborhood. 2 stories, a yard, a nursery that Elias had already started painting in soft shades of blue and gray. It was nothing like the sterile penthouse. This place felt warm. Lived in, ready for a family. What do you think? Elias asked as we stood in the empty living room, boxes piled around us. I think it's perfect, I said honestly. I think it's home. He pulled me close, careful of my growing stomach. Home? He repeated. Yeah, it is. We spent the next month making the house ours, hung pictures, chose furniture, set up the nursery with a crib and changing table and rocking chair that Elias insisted on even though I said we didn't need it. We need it, he said firmly. For midnight feedings, for rocking him to sleep, for he paused, for singing to him. You're gonna sing? I'm going to try. My mother used to sing to me. Old lullabies. I remember them. I want to pass that on. You will, I said. I know you will. At 28 weeks, I started nesting. Couldn't help it. My omega instincts kicked in full force, and suddenly I needed everything perfect. Clothes washed and organized, nursery, spotless. Freezer stocked with pre-made meals. Elias came home one day to find me reorganizing the kitchen pantry for the 3rd time that week. Theo, he said gently, maybe you should rest? I can't rest. There's too much to do. What if the baby comes early? What if we're not ready? What if... He guided me away from the pantry, sat me on the couch. We're ready. We have everything we need. The only thing our son needs is for you to be healthy and rested. Okay? But... No buts. You're nesting because your instincts are screaming at you. I get it. But we're ready, I promise. He was right. We were ready. Crib assembled, clothes washed, hospital bag packed. Everything in place. At 30 weeks, my feet started swelling. My back ached constantly. I couldn't sleep comfortably anymore. Elias started coming to bed earlier, arranging pillows around me, rubbing my lower back until I dozed off. I'm sorry, I said one night after waking him for the 3rd time because I needed to use the bathroom. I'm sorry, I'm such a mess. You're growing a person? He said, his voice rough with sleep. You're allowed to be a mess. You're allowed to wake me up 100 times. You're allowed to need help. That's what I'm here for. I love you, I said, not for the first time, but meaning it just as much as every other time. I love you too, he said. Now go pee so we can go back to sleep. At 34 weeks, we had a scare. I started having contractions irregular, but strong enough to worry. Elias rushed me to the hospital at 2 a.m., his hand gripping mine while he drove too fast and muttered reassurances that sounded more like prayers. It's okay. You're okay. The baby's okay. We're okay. The doctor checked me, hooked me up to monitors. Braxton Hicks, she said calmly. Practice contractions. Uncomfortable but not dangerous. You're not in labor. Baby looks great. Elias sagged with relief. You're sure? I'm sure. Go home. Rest. Real labor is still a few weeks away. In the car, Elias was quiet. His hands shook on the steering wheel. Hey, I said softly. We're okay. I was terrified, he admitted. Thought I was going to lose you. Both of you. And his voice cracked. I can't. I can't lose you. Not now. Not ever. You won't, I promised. We're not going anywhere. At 36 weeks, I was officially full term. Everything hurt. I couldn't see my feet, couldn't tie my shoes, couldn't roll over in bed without help. But the baby was healthy and moving constantly, little kicks and rolls that made me laugh even when they woke me up at 3 a.m. Elias talked to him every night, pressed his lips to my stomach, and told stories about his parents, about his childhood, about how much we were looking forward to meeting him. Almost time, little one, he'd say. Almost time to join us out here. At 38 weeks, we were ready, waiting. Every twinge made me think, is this it? Every backache made Elias reach for the hospital bag. Any day now, the doctor said at our last appointment. You're doing great. Baby's positioned perfectly. When labor starts, come straight to the hospital. This is your first. It might take a while, but we'll be ready for you. We went home and waited. The baby came on a Thursday, 2 weeks early, but healthy. A boy with dark hair and gray eyes that looked like his alpha father. Actually, let me tell you what really happened. Because the baby came makes it sound simple. It wasn't simple. It started at 4 a.m. I woke up to cramping that felt different from Braxton Hicks, deeper, more regular. I lay there timing them for 20 minutes before waking Elias. Elias, I said, shaking his shoulder. I think it's time. He was awake instantly, sat up, looked at me, his eyes wide. Time? Labor time? I think so. Contractions every 8 minutes for the past half hour. He was out of bed before I finished speaking, grabbed his phone, typed frantically, then showed me. Hospital bag? By the door. Already packed. Clothes. You need clothes. And, he looked around wildly. What else? What am I forgetting? Elias. I caught his hand. Breathe. We're okay. We have time. Right. Time. Okay. He took a breath. Getting dressed. You too. Then, hospital. Right. We got dressed. Or tried to. I had another contraction halfway through, pulling on my pants, and had to stop, breathing through it while Elias hovered anxiously. Should we call an ambulance? He asked. Is it happening too fast? No ambulance. Contractions are still 8 minutes apart. We have time. We made it to the car. Elias drove carefully, too carefully, going exactly the speed limit even though the streets were empty. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. You're allowed to speed a little, I said, gripping the door handle through another contraction. Don't want to crash. Need to get you there safe. We'll get there faster if you drive normal speed instead of 20 miles per hour. He sped up. Slightly. At the hospital, they checked me in. 4 centimeters dilated. Still early, the nurse said cheerfully. This could take a while. First babies usually do. And they set me up in a birthing room. Monitors strapped to my belly, tracking contractions and the baby's heartbeat. IV in my arm for fluids. Elias sat in the chair beside the bed, holding my hand, looking terrified. Are you okay? I asked during a break between contractions. I should be asking you that, he said. You're the one in labor. I'm fine. Uncomfortable, but fine. You look like you're going to pass out. I might, he admitted. This is really happening. We're about to be parents. Yeah, we are. The next 6 hours were a blur of pain and waiting. Contractions got closer together, stronger. I tried walking, tried the birthing ball, tried different positions. Nothing really helped. Just hurt. Elias stayed with me through all of it. Didn't leave once, not even when I snapped at him during a particularly bad contraction. He just held my hand, released calming pheromones, and told me I was doing great even though I felt like I was dying. At 10 a.m., I was 7 centimeters. The doctor checked me, smiled encouragingly. You're doing great. Almost there. Almost? I wanted to cry. I can't do this for hours more. You can, Elias said firmly. You're the strongest person I know. You can do this. Easy for you to say. You're not. Another contraction hit, cutting off my words. At noon, I was 9 centimeters. So close. The contractions were on top of each other now, barely any break. I was exhausted, shaking, crying. I can't, I sobbed. I can't do this anymore. I can't. Yes, you can, Elias was right there, his forehead pressed to mine. You can do anything. You're incredible. You're so close. Just a little more. Elias. I'm here. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. You're not alone. You can do this. At 1 p.m., I was finally fully dilated. The doctor came in, checked me, and nodded. Okay, Theo. Next contraction, I want you to push. Pushing was somehow worse than contractions. Every muscle in my body screaming, my omega instincts panicking because this shouldn't hurt this much, should it? Elias held one of my legs, a nurse held the other, and I pushed. And pushed. And pushed. I can see his head, the doctor said. One more big push. I didn't think I had one more push in me. But Elias's hand tightened on mine, and he spoke, clear and steady and strong. You've got this. One more. Just one more. I love you. You can do this. I pushed, screamed, felt something give, and suddenly there was a baby, crying, loud and angry and perfect. It's a boy, the doctor said, lifting him up. Congratulations. They placed him on my chest, tiny and red and screaming. I looked down at him and felt my entire world shift. This was my son, mine and Elias's, this little person we'd made. When the nurse placed him in Elias's arms, my husband looked down at our son and spoke clearly. No hesitation, no fear. I love you, both of you, forever. I cried. Elias cried. The baby squirmed and made tiny sounds. What should we name him? I asked, even though we'd already decided. Just wanted to hear Elias say it. Elias looked at me, then at our son, Atlas. After the weight you've been carrying alone for so long, the weight we'll carry together from now on. Atlas Grant, I said, testing it. I like it. The next few hours were a blur. They checked Atlas, weighed him 7 pounds, 4 ounces, measured him, cleaned him up. They checked me, stitched me up, cleaned me up. Every time I looked over, Elias was holding Atlas, staring at him like he was the most precious thing in the world, which he was. That night, after the nurses had left us alone, Elias sat beside my hospital bed with Atlas sleeping on his chest. He spoke quietly, his voice steady now, practiced from months of trying. I married you thinking it was just an arrangement, a business deal, a convenience. But you were never convenient, Theo. You were disruptive. You broke through walls I'd spent 5 years building. You made me feel when I'd spent so long trying not to. You made me speak when I'd forgotten how. I didn't do anything, I protested weakly, exhausted from labor. You existed, he said simply. You were kind when you had no reason to be. You were patient when I was impossible. You fell in love with me even though I gave you no reason to. And you gave me something I never thought I'd have again. What's that? A family, a real one, built on choice, not obligation, on love, not arrangement. He kissed my forehead. Thank you. For what? For being mine, he said. For letting me be yours. For not giving up on me even when I gave you every reason to. I took his hand. I'll never give up on you. You're stuck with me now. Good, he said, smiling. Because I have a lot of lost time to make up for. Years of words I didn't say. Years of I love yous I held back. I'm going to make sure you hear them every day from now on. I'm going to hold you to that. Please do. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days, learning how to feed Atlas, how to change him, how to soothe him when he cried. Elias was a natural, gentle, and patient, and completely besotted with our son. On the second night, Atlas was fussy, wouldn't settle. I was exhausted, sore, hormonal, and close to tears myself. Here, Elias said softly, let me try. He took Atlas, held him against his chest, and started humming, quiet at first, then louder. The melody was old, something I didn't recognize. A lullaby, maybe. His mother's lullaby. Atlas quieted immediately, stopped fussing, settled against his father's chest with a soft sound. You're singing, I said, tears streaming down my face. Elias, you're singing. I told you I would, he said, still humming. For our son. I'll always sing for our son. When we brought Atlas home, Elias carried him through the door like he was made of glass, set him gently in the bassinet we'd placed in our bedroom, stood there just watching him sleep. He's really here, Elias said. He's really ours. He is. I'm terrified. Me too. What if I mess up? What if I'm not enough? What if... Elias, I took his hand. We'll mess up. Probably a lot. But we'll do it together. And we'll figure it out. That's what parents do. He pulled me close carefully, mindful of my healing body. Together, he agreed. The first week was chaos. Sleepless nights, constant feedings, learning what different cries meant. But Elias was there for all of it. Changed diapers, did 2 a.m. feedings, sang lullabies when Atlas was fussy, held me when I cried from exhaustion and hormones. I couldn't do this without you, I told him one night after a particularly rough day. You could, he said, but you don't have to. That's the difference. What are you thinking? Elias asked. That I married a mute alpha, I said, and I got the most talkative husband in the world. He laughed, actually laughed. You complaining? Never, I said. I love your voice, every word, every hesitation, all of it. Good, he said, because you're going to be hearing a lot more of it. I have 18 years of bedtime stories to tell our son, and then hopefully more children after that. More children? If you want them. I want a big family. Want this house full of noise and chaos and love. Want to give our children everything we didn't have. He looked down at Atlas. Want them to never doubt they're wanted, that they're loved, that they matter. My eyes stung with tears. We'll give them that. Together. Together, he agreed. Atlas stirred, made a soft sound. Elias immediately started humming, not words, just a tune, soothing, gentle. I watched them together and felt my heart expand. This was my family. My husband who'd learned to speak. My son who would grow up hearing his father's voice, never knowing there was a time when he was silent. My home built on honesty and choice and love. This was everything I'd never let myself hope for. And it was real. Thank you for joining Theo Bennett's journey from arranged marriage to true love, from silence to speaking, from obligation to family. If this story of a mute alpha who broke 5 years of silence to claim his omega, of trust built word by word, and of love that taught someone to speak again touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more BL Omegaverse stories. Drop a comment telling me which moment hit you hardest. Was it when Elias spoke for the first time on their wedding night, or when he promised to try for Theo, or the moment he held their son? Until next time, remember, sometimes the most powerful love stories aren't about grand gestures, but about someone choosing to be vulnerable for you. Sometimes love isn't loud, it's a voice, rough from disuse, saying, "You're mine," in the dark. And sometimes the person who seems the most closed off is just waiting for the right person to make them feel safe enough to open up. Love finds us when we least expect it, and sometimes it speaks when we most need to hear it.